Shalom everyone and welcome. I'm Levaran and I'm joined by Hagit Shemly today. We are happy to have two fascinating guests with us. Dr. Michael Sternberg, a researcher, lecturer, and conflict transformation expert at Ben Gurion University. He is actively involved in international peace-building initiatives, and this work spans intergroup relations, narratives, and dialogues. And Judith van den Bוכrט, I hope I said it well, independent expert in international dialogue and peace-building. Judith's expertise extends to negotiation, mediation, and trauma-informed care. She's a founder of an organization promoting insider mediation in Dutch neighborhoods to counter polarization. So I hope I said the name well. And I will maybe start with you. Michael, you are involved with like two groups, two initiatives. And if you can start telling us about them, and then we will move to Judith.
Yes. And with both of them also Judith is involved. I think this is how we met. I'll start out with the IPF International Peace Builders Forum, which was sponsored by Initiatives of Change in Switzerland, beautiful Switzerland. And it's, as the name says, it's a forum which brings together peace builders from all over the world. We started, Judith and my role in it as coordinators, together with two additional colleagues, Jonathan Dudding and help me with the Dutch now, how should I say
Laura.
it? Laura Reinders.
Laura Reinders.
The four of us are coordinators. And we had a face-to-face meeting in the years 2014, 15, 16, I think. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we are online with the advantages and disadvantages of online meetings. The need that we respond to is that if you're involved in peace building, it's a tough business because especially when you're most needed, you're most despised because you are not with the mainstream. Where others see us and them, you see an inclusive us. Where others see we need violence in order to overcome our enemies, peace builders say we need to transgress, we need to transform violence into peace building. And there's lots of burnout. There's very much burnout, not only in Israel, but in other places where we have violence and peace building, either during violence or in post-violence. It's a difficult business because you don't see results quickly unless you're very, very lucky. And usually the results that are for the better are not your own work. You contribute for a better future. It's an accumulative work, but it's not like a peace builder or a peace building organization who will be the one to bring peace to a specific place. If you're lucky, it looks like it. But it's like with, let's say, as a metaphor, the Berlin Wall. The person who took away the first stone from the Berlin Wall was not the person who caused the Berlin Wall to disappear. So I guess it's the same with peace building. We may have this great illusion that if we do the right kind of work, we are the ones who will bring peace. But it's not in our hands, but we have a very important part in trying to promote peace when it's most needed and it's less expected.
Michael, can you be specific on Kumi methods and IPF?
Yes, about the IPF. The objectives and how do we go about it? The objective is, first of all, to assist with burnout and to inspire where there might be, I don't want to say it, but if there is despair or the first signs of discouragement, how do we create hope? And networking, lots and lots of networking. So it's very much about providing a safe space for people from many places to come and realize I'm not the only one in the world who believes in it. So we have a day in which it's a 3-day conference usually. So we have a day in which people do lots and lots of networking and lots of meeting each other with games, and it's fun also, and meeting inspiring people. And we usually try to make an effort and brought in inspiring guest speakers. And then we would have a look, so what happens in the world around us, and we do a mapping about what are the processes that support peace and those that challenge peace. And where is my own local situation vis-a-vis the global processes? This is more or less the first day. And the second day, lots and lots of workshops in which practitioners share what works best for them in different places with different orientations. It's very colorful, it's very diverse. You have lots of choice and you move from one place to the other and you join where you feel most interested. So it's sharing practical knowledge. The third day is about, so what shall we do with what we gained here? How can I put it back to work? So there's lots of co-consultation and joint thinking and consensus building about the relative value of different things that we discovered and taking leave. Did I forget something, Judith, about the way it works?
No, I think it's a colorful description of how we work with all these peace builders, and we try not only to focus on the cognitive, because we are always thinking and trying to change something and overthinking sometimes, but we also focus on what is happening in your body, what does it do to you, and movement. When you use movement, can you really feel a difference, express it in a different way? So it's we also work in an embodied way. We also worked with theater makers and dancers or no, I don't know the word. Just not to be only in your mind cognitively, but also in the body. And that works in mysterious ways, because people are like, in the beginning they're like, whoa, hesitant, I don't know how to counter this, what to do with it. And then at the end of the workshop, after these 3 days, they felt like, yes, now I could really feel through it, and I connected also through that with the others around me. And I think that is something that is coming up more and more in the field of conflict resolution. What does it do in the body with you when you're in conflict, and acknowledging that and take it with you when you try to make sense of the world we work in. Yeah.
The Kumi method. The Kumi method.
Yeah, the Kumi method. It started out in Israel, Palestine.
Mm-hmm. It has like an Hebrew and Arabic meaning, right?
Exactly. It was inspired. Many of the meetings were in Talita Kumi, which you're familiar with, which is like one of the few places where Israelis and Palestinians can meet, near Bethlehem. And it's a Christian Lutheran school and a guest house there. Lots of peace work has been done there. So anyhow, we had lots of meetings there, so it became Kumi, because it sounds good in all of the languages, rise up. And the idea was, how can we create a network of practitioners and facilitators who are dedicated to transform violent conflict? That's the core idea. And we brought together a quite diverse bunch of international practitioners, which was a crazy thing to do, because when you're an international practitioner, you have lots of ego you carry with you. Like, we needed a huge parking space for all the egos we brought together. But they were very positive. They made a huge effort, and it's not easy for peace practitioners to make peace between themselves, because everybody knows best what to do. And we insisted that we need something that combines different types of thinking. So we had Galtung's thinking, which is conflict analysis, the transcend approach, which is about understanding the relationship between direct violence, cultural violence, structural violence. And we had the Arya approach of Jay Rotman, which is, how do we, in communication and relations, move from antagonism, I'm right, you're wrong, to resonance. I see your point. I may not agree with you, but I can understand where you're coming from.
We know you have a lot of experience working in the Philippines and Myanmar and further places, and we would like to ask you if maybe you can share with us some effective strategy for mitigating conflict in diverse contexts, such as places like that. And, you know, if there are any unique challenges or successful approaches that you have encountered in these regions.
Beautiful questions. So I've been working in a lot of countries as a trainer, foremost, trainer and expert in conflict resolution skills. I'm a mediator, and I worked for an organization called Klingendaal, and we worked with a lot of people who are in heavy conflict or post-conflict situations. And especially when they see that there's no way of coming out of this conflict, and there's more deadly, it becomes more deadly than before. So some people come at a point that they think we need something else, right? And at that point we came in and tried to give some other skills, at least not. If you're in conflict, there's different ways to deal with that, and one is to negotiate or to start talking, but that's very difficult. And most people who want to, they don't have the skills. They do it just by intuition, right? Most peace builders who start being a peace builder, they start because they have the urge, or they feel like I have to do something, and they start communicating. They start being a key figure in their community, but they don't really learn on school how to navigate through that. So I worked a lot together with youth organizations who were already in the field, like the UNDP, a Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, does a lot of mediation work. Other organizations, but also the African Union, ECOWAS, ASEAN. They suddenly realize, hey, skills are needed, and especially negotiation and mediation skills, how to negotiate. And I think in a lot of places, people only think about a win-lose, how to get to something, to accomplish that you want to accomplish, that is important for you. But if you want to get out of conflict, you have to also consider what the other wants, because otherwise the only thing you can do is try to win or to determine it in your way, to win by power, right? So my focus lies still on how to see multiple perspectives, and also how to see that how can you bring people into a vision that a win-win is better than a win-lose, because when you have a win-lose, the loser, the one who's losing, will eventually try to come back when it feels strong enough. And so I worked, in the Philippines, I worked in Myanmar, I worked in with the Syrian opposition, trying to negotiate with the Assad regime. I worked in different places in Africa, in Libya, and I think my main...
Would you focus, for instance, on the Philippines? What was the conflict? What was the role of the civil society? If you feel that there was a success, how you measure the success, things like this.
So in the Philippines, there have been work by civil society. Civil society is very strong. Also women groups in civil society, all kinds of. And I think they worked a lot. There was a lot of insurgencies since the independence. Especially in the south of the Philippines. So there were Islamic groups, but also secular groups or communist groups trying to use other means than negotiation to earn their independence. And the UNDP has been working there for a long time, and I've been working with them on creating more how to say that, to create more coherence between the different groups, and also to let them see when you fight only for your goals and the others fighting for other goals, you're never gonna negotiate in an effective way with the government, which you're opposing both both of you are opposing. And there's a lot of like no synergy between the groups actually fighting among themselves. And so the UNDP started, and we helped them with that with insider mediation groups. The UNDP has a big project, and it's called how can you train these key figures, the trusted people who are already in society, but very diverse from different positions, different civil society groups, from universities, business leaders, all kinds of people who are seen as trustworthy. How can you get them together and learn them the skills of mediation, of doing a conflict analysis, understanding what the real needs and real what the real needs of the people are, what they really want to accomplish, their interests, their fears, what they fear the most, and why are they motivated to fight, actually. And so they brought all these people together in insider mediation training, also in negotiation training, to really understand, and also how to learn by a lot of exercises together about each other. Because when you place certain people who are from different parts of society, actually sometimes opposing each other, you place them in a group in which they have to do exercises together, and you go more and more deeper, and suddenly becomes also personal, because then you eventually also start about who are you then in this. Slowly building it up, it helps to create like, but we want so these skills we can use to work together, and what is actually a common goal. And eventually, because they knew each other and they worked on insider mediation, and to spread more insider mediation in the south of the Philippines, they also started to understand how can we better together negotiate with the government from the Philippine government for more independence, more autonomy. And actually they created they negotiated very well on peace deals before, but also on having a kind of interim government, and deciding in the south for a lot of their a lot for themselves. And some of the mediators we trained, they were also now their ministers. They are in this interim government.
Okay, Michael, we will move to the Kosovo region. And I feel even when you spoke about Israel-Palestine, maybe it is also correct about Kosovo. Civil society in a way is limited. And if we set the bar too high, in a way, we will not be able to see the achievements, okay? Because it is mostly like a government issue, all this peace issue and also the war issue. So if you can delve into the Kosovo conflict and what you were doing there and what were the achievements.
Yes. Not mine, others' achievements I can talk about. I was part of a study group that met in the years 2006 to 2008 with practitioners and academics from the former Yugoslavia, all the countries that broke away. So it was broke away from what later on became Serbia and Macedonia and Montenegro and Croatia and Bosnia, Herzegovina, I still remember the names. And very interesting for me was Kosovo, where I visited a few times. It was just the time before and after they gained independence. It was after the Civil War, very tough and bloody Civil War, if you remember, in the 90s, all over that region. And in the study group, we looked at the different places and what happened there. And I want, first of all, to share with you that when I saw what civil society does, in the beginning, I thought, we are much better here in Israel and Palestine. We have so much more experience. We did so many more things. We are so professional. We are just great. And then I realized, but they're working already towards post-conflict. and we are still working in conflict. So maybe we are not that great. Maybe it doesn't matter how great you are. It matters what is the context to work in, and if you find your role, your relevant role. It's not about being very professional, not professional what you do. It's about finding your voice, your role, and work for a better future. Kosovo for me was very inspiring because I saw civil society waking up in a way, and because the government at that time was still rudimentary, it was still nation building time. I think it still is. There were lots of roles for civil society. In a way, these last weeks, unfortunately, we saw again what happens when the government is weak, but civil society is strong. And I think this in a way should be what, this should guide us. Like when you realize there's something which is not happening on the government level, but it needs to happen in society, let's go and do it. And you don't even need to think, is this peace work? Is it not peace work? Is it social work? Is it economic work? It doesn't matter. What needs to be done in society, this is what should guide you. And this is how you can keep your relevance. I was very impressed there by women's groups in Kosovo. And I think we had a few conversations, Judith, about women in conflict. It's women obviously are the first to be hit by conflict. It's like we men make the conflict usually, and women have to carry it through. And economically, psychologically, physically, socially, on any level you can think of. And I realized that the women in Kosovo went into all these directions. So it was about economic empowerment. How can women look for themselves economically and not only be dependent on men? Many of them were without work. It's finding a voice within the community. So in a way, it was community leadership development. It was community development. And in a few very rare instances, they also managed to cross the boundaries between the Serb minority in Kosovo, who had the power before independence, and the majority of Kosovo women, the Albanian majority. And this is something that Judith and I had an interesting conversation with Monica McWilliams, one of the co-signers of the Good Friday agreements, right? Who was involved in gender-based work in North Ireland in the years leading up and after the agreements. When women work together, they can look also for things that we can cross the boundaries. We can look for our shared interests, values, needs, and cooperate. Sometimes it's overt, sometimes it's more hidden. But when you work within a significant identity group, lots of opportunities come up. And it was exciting to see women who didn't have a voice before become dominant within their own society, and all of a sudden also becoming candidates for the municipality and regional elections, and aiming later on to go also for the national elections in a society which is not very favorable, which is quite traditional in terms of power relations, positions, and so on. Another insight I had is the role of international organizations in supporting local initiatives. There was the Nansen Dialogue Network, Norwegian, and the DFG. They were both also very active all over the former Yugoslavia, but also in Kosovo, encouraging dialogue and trying to support a generation of activists who gain the capacity to do what Judith described: conflict analysis, look for the roots of the experiences that we have now, understanding root causes of violence, looking at violence on the hidden level, like cultural violence, stereotyping, labeling, structural violence, the way we divide power in our society, and understanding the prices that these things have. And from there, moving to dialogue, bringing people from different places in lives and identities and political positions, and encourage them to have conversations. And this is work that it's quite specific. Like, you need to keep on doing it and doing it and doing it until you start to see people gain the readiness to listen to each other and to talk with each other. And but I think the most major insight for me was really what I said before: go and look what needs to be done and do it. This is, I think before I saw the work that is being done in Kosovo, I thought there must be in each situation something major that needs to be done. And this, and you need to focus there. My learning there was there is no such a thing. There are so many things that need to be done. So look for where you find something of significance to you, something which you are able to do, where you can create partnerships of doing it and do it, and add what you may add towards a better future. And don't expect the future to come tomorrow. It takes time. Those activists in Kosovo I work with, many of them have been active for many years during very dark times. Some of the family members were labeled terrorists for a reason, and they were in jail. But they were committed to create another future, a peaceful one, and go on working. And they were the lucky generation in the sense that they experienced the Declaration of Independence and could move to nation building. So there are still lots of challenges there. It's not very peaceful there. It's a slippery road, especially in Bosnia. But find your role and fulfill it with faith and commitment. That's my learning.
That's an interesting take. I want to ask the next question. Moving to Judith again. I'm moving you around the world from, Myanmar and Philippines, and now back to Europe, and even more specifically to the Netherlands, which I know you're connected to. And I want to ask you, building on your insights, how applicable do you find the tools and methodologies in civil society intervention to the current context in Europe, mainly in the Netherlands, that is experiencing a very interesting change right now?
Yeah, I think they are already for a long time applicable, but we always tend to, as peace builders, to look around and see in the world, wow, there's a heavy conflict. What can we do there? Even when you are studying conflict studies, that's what you do. It's at least in the Netherlands, and in Europe, because we are at peace, right? But we're not at peace. There's so much underneath the surface that is building up for a long time. In the Netherlands, you see it in Hungary, extremism comes up. Suddenly you have a conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and we are moving into it as well, because it's ours. It's suddenly Europe, and it all it connects, I think. And what I see in my own society, and we had a lot of conversations also during the online version of IPF, International Peace Builders Forum, about it. We see all these actually fires going up also in areas that we didn't expect. It was safe, right? And there's no conflict, but people are, I think what the war in Russia, between Russia and Ukraine, it created also a collapse in energy, provided energy, high prices went up. There's the migrant crisis in Europe already since Syria went into war, and all of this has a negative image. And I think also the social media doesn't help. And people here there's a lot of fake news, or people are fed by emotions and fears. And I see conflict arises usually because people don't feel secure or they feel threatened. So people turn into more of the extremes, and if they don't get what they want or they are not listened to, and that's, I think, the biggest problem in the Netherlands, people feel that they're not listened to, they're not seen. And what did they do? They do a protest vote, for example, on Wilders, because he's talking about let's not get more migrants in because they will get our jobs, they will get our houses. There's a limited amount of houses for people, also young people. So people are voting with their underbelly, I think, not looking ahead what may come when you vote such a guy into power. But I think it's a lack of the government really listening to its people. We had a couple of crises in the Netherlands where people with or migrant background or also in the north, when they were drilling for oil, houses were collapsing, there little earth shakes, and the government didn't listen for so many years. People are fed up with not being listened to, and so they vote for something different. And I think it feeds polarization. It feeds people don't understand each other anymore. COVID also happened where people were also put in boxes, or you get your vaccination or not. And it was like, oh, the government doesn't see the people who make another choice. So it builds up and suddenly you're in this situation. And I think it made me even more aware of how people don't find each other, that we are not connected anymore. And we have this, we grow up in this great nation, actually, where there's so much for us. Education is there. Everyone can, there are differences. And of course, there's also discrimination. So there are problems, but we don't listen to where people are confronted with difficult situations. And that's what we should do. I think, I hope more people realize that we have to build conversations again and dialogues and talk about difficult issues in order to have a connection again. So that's why I feel I think inside the mediation, the practices I saw in really post-conflict or conflict areas, that gives me hope, because people are really in dire situations are able to find each other again. Maybe we're not too late in the Netherlands, right? So.
Okay, so last question.
Yeah.
There are like those self-styled experts, like brimming with confidence, that people who know everything and so on. And here we have like two real experts. And here in Israel, we have a real conflict also. So the question is, what is your take about the role of civil society? Maybe not now, when the war is so much hitting, but maybe a bit later when there is some kind of a ceasefire or some kind of negotiation. What should be the role of civil society in our conflict?
Obviously, like many of us here, I keep thinking about it. We need to stay attuned to the needs of today and of all the citizens, or as many as possible. Be attuned to the needs and find what we can do in response to these needs. And not to be discouraged about the distance we obviously will have to cover. And there's the need for healing. I think Judith mentioned healing. I think that's we should take it as a broad concept. First of all, there's lots of personal healing that needs to happen. Like, if I'm not mistaken, 3 weeks ago, one of the schools of medicine had a survey which claimed that every third Israeli is in trauma now. I don't think we ever had such a statistic. And we need to be able to respond to that. I think we need to respond to the need for healing between communities. There's lots of pain and feeling of neglect and feeling of my voice is not being heard. And something very basic, which happened in the former Yugoslavia, learning about what is democracy. We're not good at democracy. And I remember, I always pitied my colleagues in Serbia who tried to teach democracy and human rights in Serbian schools. It's like, the perpetrator, how do you teach the perpetrator about what is it that makes you a perpetrator? I don't want to compare, but I think it's a tough job here within Israel to teach, especially young people, what might be democracy, what might be human rights, and why are they of relevance to us, to all of us? Why do we need them? That's a very tough job. And I think we need to accept that we're in for a very long haul. I think what happened now will stay with us for generations to come in ways we can't even imagine now because we're still in the middle of it. So understand that to look for what is it that we can do in terms of healing, of building, influencing thinking and behavior. Be ready to be committed for long-term work and not expect the results we want to happen by tomorrow. And then there is political work, the interface between civil society and political decision-making. But this is, I think, something that has been happening since last January, this issue. How can we find this? And those who have the capacity and the interest there, they're terribly important because the short-term change, which is also so very important, will happen there. So lots of it is done there. And then it will be good, I think, if there are a few of us who are ready to look at the whole picture. Like I covered maybe 10% of the types of work that are needed, but if there are some who are ready to look at the broad picture and try to encourage dialogue maybe between those different actors so they are aware what others are doing and provide encouragement maybe and inspiration. Maybe this is the work that you will be doing, Lev and Hagit.
Maybe, but if you go to politics, we want to be the first to know, okay, Michael?
No, not me. Not in Israeli politics. There are places where it seems much better.
Yeah, and if I can add, I think in the places in the research I did for how to get to a peace agreement, which is durable, you need the diversity of people in it. Civil society plays a big role because they are the ones connected to the people. The people, they have the connection they talk to people, they listen, and the listening is so important. And then, I mean, you talk about the national level, political level, but you need also civil society to be involved, and maybe also, yeah, schools, I don't know, where all these voices. And that's also when we talked about Williams, the one who worked in the peace process in Ireland, she said, when we as women were involved, we started talking to everyone. We wanted all their opinions. We started dialogue groups to get that all into a peace agreement. It's not only the leaders who decide, but it's all these little people who put their their voices in, and then you make up from that mess. But then people feel that it's also their peace accord or their change, right? I think that's the most important when you try to build towards, yeah, in a negotiation process, seeing so many negotiation process from close. Yeah.
I want to share a personal story which I keep thinking about. It happened some 10 years ago. So I co-facilitated a Kumi workshop. It took place in Germany, out of all places. I have the accent for it. And we had in the room people from the Fatah, We had in the room people from a number of rightist parties. I don't want to put anybody in problems, so I won't say which ones, but the really rightist one at that time, it was a decade ago or so, more than a decade. And after people came because they wanted to go shopping, free flight, Berlin, duty free. Who can say no to that? But then poor them, we put them in a room and we kept them in a room for close to a week. We discussed all the issues that are between Israelis and Palestinians, Jerusalem, refugees, all of it. And by the end of the week, we realized the disagreements are not that deep. Like they're solvable, all of them. And we are talking about people who are like the middle-level leadership of the political parties, those who bring in the votes to the top leadership, you know what I mean? And also those who make business out of being in politics, like I won't enlarge on it. But they were ideological, the ideology. And I was devastated. I was devastated because I realized at the time that our mutual leaderships refused to speak, actually, things are possible. So why don't they happen? They don't happen because there's no value at the moment for the top leadership, and they sell things to their constituencies, which are not based off, let's go for reapproachment, for finding solutions. It sells much better, at least in the last decade and a half, to continue with us and them, and we will overcome them. We will win, they will lose. And but it means the potential is there. It's not something that can't be solved. It's not unsolvable. It's only about human beings being ready to address what needs to be addressed. And those who cooperated on this, we as a team, were Israelis and Palestinians, we stayed in touch even these days. Like we feel the pain of each other. And I think as long as we continue to work together and being guided by the knowledge, these problems can be solved. Conflicts are solved ultimately. Question is in which generation and at what costs. But they can be solved. So if we keep that in mind and we keep cooperating, I think we do what needs to be done.
Michael, that's the most optimistic message of the day, at least for me. So thank you for that. And well, actually, thank you, both of you, Michael and Judith, for sharing your knowledge with us. And I hope your rich toolbox and your insights have, something to do with our own conflict here in Israel, and hopefully we can work it out like Michael just suggested. I know it's going to be a long one, but still, there's hope.